All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on episode 193 of Blowback, Exposing Imperial Decline. I am one of your co-hosts, Billy Bob. I am on the West Coast in California. It's about 9 a.m. here. I've got my co-host, Ian Cummer. He is streaming live currently from his dacha in Crimea. And it's what, 9 p.m., sir?
No, it's 7 p.m. 7 p.m. We
Okay,
went
I went the
backwards.
other way with
Yes,
mine.
right. We went backwards with daylight savings time, and Russia does not have daylight savings time. So twice a year, I have to remember that our show starts an hour early or an hour ahead. So,
and we
we're all here.
had two great guests lined up. Both of them were ruined by daylight savings time. So, we just skipped back 1 hour, and that means that it's extra late in places that don't do that stupid daylight savings time thing. And so, we were hoping to get Indi Samarajiva on at indi.ca. Great website, great blog. But yeah, it was too late. It's like 10:30 p.m. and he's, fasting for Ramadan, and he's got, family and things. So he couldn't join us. So I apologize for promoting him. And then he's not able to come in. But we didn't realize daylight savings time was going to be such a problem. And then Leo Zhao I don't see. Leo got off work at 6 p.m. and that's in another 55 minutes. So he doesn't even get off for 55 minutes. So we thought he was going to get off and be able to jump in, within 20 to 30 minutes. But that doesn't look possible either. So you guys are stuck with Ian and I, but that's okay because there is just so much to talk about. I've been very busy on my weekend here at home. I have weird days off. And so I have Thursdays, Fridays off. And so it lets me do a lot of Facebooking on my weekends. And yeah, I've been writing a lot on my Facebook, arguing with people, trying to explain things to people. And I'm just really struck by, there's just seems to me to be a tremendous disconnect between what's actually going on in Iran and around the world, and what your average social media personality or person thinks is going on. And so that's just a source of unending interest to me to ponder this huge gulf of disconnect between what people think is going on and what's actually going on. But it's such where to begin, Ian. I'm gonna let you guide us
Pass it to me. Yes. So guys, so every time we do one of these episodes, I write a little a mini article to go with it. So I am going to actually share that with you right now. There we go. Now you should see my screen. So this is the what I wrote for today's episode. So my thoughts on Iran so far. We're day 14 out of the 3-day special military operation, so it's going great. It's only day 14. The problem, and I would say the problem with Trump is that or even just the U.S. government in general, there's very little risk, what's called organizational risk management. And what that means is anytime you do any kind of operation, whether it's a meeting or a fields trip or just whatever you're doing for your organization, is you're supposed to analyze the risk that comes with it, and then create controls to mitigate the risks that you identified. So, like for example, if you do a training range with firearms, you say, okay, what are the hazards with this? People could get shot, people could otherwise get injured, people could get dehydrated. They're like, okay, the ways to do that is we're going to follow the firearm safety rules. People are going to wear their helmets. People are going to wear eye protection. People are going to drink water. So basically, you create all these controls. You put people in charge of those controls. But it seems like with Trump, he does these things where like, okay, how well planned and thought out were these things? So like Venezuela went great. He got Maduro. There were no casualties. Everything went great. So it's like maybe so you could kind of get the idea. Oh, maybe it's just it's a great competent operation we have going on at the White House and the Pentagon. But with Iran, it really shows as far as I can tell, they just got lucky with Venezuela, and also Iran is just a much harder target. They did all that stuff in the first day when they had surprise because they basically tricked Iran with this fake peace deal, and but did not collapse the Iranian government. It did not start a coup or an uprising or any of this other stuff. They didn't capitulate immediately. Actually, for that matter, Venezuela didn't really capitulate either, but they successfully glossed over that because Venezuela, because they didn't hit us back or anything. So, but with Iran, so they were hitting us back, and it came out. I think it was yesterday or today that they spent more than $5 billion just in the first 2 days of the war with Iran. Several other noteworthy. I'm going to stop sharing this screen, but if you go to readingjunkie.com, you can read it. But anyways, some other significant headlines is it seems like they're losing around one airframe a day, if you add them up, right? And these are just the ones that we know about or were sort of admitted. It's like we had those 3 F-15s that were down allegedly by friendly fire over Kuwait. And there were, I think it was yesterday, there were 3 European Typhoon fighters that were hit on the ground. That's the thing that allegedly happened. And then, of course, there's the story with those 2 tankers, those refuelers, those flying refuelers. One crashed, killing all 6 aboard, and the other one was damaged. And there was an actual photo of it released. It was consistent with a missile because it hits the tail. It didn't seem like a collision. But basically, at the end of the day, it's around 1 or 2 airframes every day because there's some drones as well that are not cheap. One of it, typically like those Gray Eagle type drones, that whole family of drones that get used. They are not cheap. They're not Shahed drones. They're around just from memory, I think $5 to $10 million each, at least. They're not cheap. So there's no crew aboard that's at risk, but they're not something you want to lose every day either. So the air losses are problems. And also there was another headline that came out. There's problems with evacuating personnel from the bases in Iraq because they're under constant Iranian missile and drone attacks, and there's also Iraqi attacks. The resistance there is also attacking the base in tandem, which brings the question into planning because if you're going to launch, because once you start a war with someone, your freedom of movement is gone, right? So when you start the war, you want everybody to be where you want them to be in the war itself, because it's risky to move them. Or maybe it's impossible to move certain people after the war starts. So there's a lot of these people. You had a lot of these embassy staffs, these non-essential workers on all these bases who were there and had no warning. They weren't apparently not even ordered to evacuate until, in many cases, 2 or 3 days into it, which sounds like it was a planning. It's like it wasn't even planned that we would need to evacuate them. And another headline from I saw this morning was the Trump administration and the Pentagon did not think that Iran would block the strait. So we asked why was it? Where was the planning for it? Because I mean, I remember as a kid knowing about the strait, that if you had a big war in the Middle East with Iran, this was common knowledge since forever, since Iran became, independent and, a potentially hostile state with the USA. It's been known since forever that they could block the strait, and that would be really bad. That was like a thing everybody knew,
Yeah.
but then it's like, well, they didn't plan for it. They didn't think they were going to do it or would be able to do it, which is just, well, it's incredible. It's really, really incredible. They wouldn't.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So, and that ties us back in with the title. So I didn't mention the title of today's episode is The Grand Chessboard, How Western Hubris Resulted in Catastrophic Defeat. And then I did speak to, this disconnect because, it seems obvious that this is turning into a catastrophic defeat for the West. I mean, we're still early on, but all the indicators suggest that that's what's happening. But meanwhile, in the West, you have Trump declaring victory. You have, all these statements, all these hubristic statements coming out from the talking heads in the administration, in the media. Well, not all the media, and so it's the question is like, of course, like what is going on and why? And it seems that Trump, perhaps was told a bunch of nonsense, right? Like he was really kind of, it seems like perhaps he was really talked into this war by giving a whole bunch of, information that wasn't true, because, the people that are pushing for this, of course, want Trump to involve himself. And then they want to be able to blame Trump for, the catastrophe that results. But they know once they get, the United States touching this tar baby, that they won't be able to extract themselves, and they'll just have to get, deeper and deeper and deeper. And, that's what they want to do, because ultimately, I think they're going to be happy just to take all the energy exports offline from the Middle East and, cause real big problems globally with the economy. I think, they're kind of happy to do that, but we're already getting past what's going on right now. So, okay. I mean, we can talk about the Stratotankers that went down. We can talk about Iran's, strategy and why they are actually doing, very well, and things are going according to their plan. We can talk about why the United States is surprised and now has all these problems that they can't even deal with. But I it does seem like, when we hear things like, Trump didn't think Iran was going to block the straits, and Trump didn't think that, Iran was going to attack U.S. bases in all the Gulf states. It seems like, he was kind of manipulated and misled into thinking that this would be a cakewalk. And now I think, behind the scenes, he's really maybe realizing that he was sold a bill of goods and manipulated, but it's too late, right? Because he's involved and there's no walking it back. And so this is kind of how, they can, the ruling establishment, the powers that be, can manipulate individuals. So for instance, JFK, I think what got him killed was he wasn't willing to be manipulated into attacking Cuba. And I think that might have been a big reason, for the lead poisoning he ultimately received.
Well, so yeah, I think a lot of people there were a lot of miscalculations to go around here. I mean, we get some of these comments here, like we have the usual greetings, so like greetings, James from Florida. Now, Dust, they knew and simply don't care about putting their cannon fodder and labor in harm's way. Well, they do care. We're talking about, I don't even know how many tens of billions of dollars in defense infrastructure. And it's not just tactical or regional defense structures, strategic. It's early defense, because the radars are not just for regional wars. They're to they're protect the USA, the continental USA, in a nuclear war. And so losing those radars is a very, very serious problem. And actually, what I wrote in the today's article that went with the podcast today, people are talking about, well, if Iran comes out of this on top, they'll be a regional power. And I said, no, they're already a regional power. If they come out on top, if they come out, clearly with the upper hand, even if it's not like a complete victory, if Iran comes out as looking good, they will be a global power. They'll be a world power, not just a regional power. And we're already seeing this with several of the Gulf states. They're unhappy. They're already shutting down their oil, production, and the reason why they had to shut it down, not even that it's under threat, but because they just can't ship it. Their storage facilities are full. Because and so they just have to shut down, and it's not, a switch that you can flip on and off. It's even if the war ended now, it would take them a while to get those facilities running again. So if they switch, if they flip flop to Iran, if they're just like, okay, we're going to be buds with the Iranians,
for self-preservation.
Right, and it's like, okay, it's a little unusual because they're Sunnis and Iran is Shia, but I mean, what are these regimes going to do? I mean, it's just the USA just turned out to be. If the USA just turned out to be this huge paper tiger, they couldn't even do the basics of protecting them with the bases on their soil. Well, what are they going to do? It's all bad, and I don't think it's hyperbole to say that we could be witnessing just the empire itself being dismantled, completely dismantled, falling on its sword, and it's done after this.
Yeah, I mean, the Fifth Fleet is in Bahrain, and that's a huge, it's a huge military asset for the United States, and it's basically been destroyed, and so I don't think
destroyed. Who destroyed the Fifth Fleet? I didn't hear that.
No, well, the base. So the point is the aircraft carriers can no longer go to port there and restock their munitions. And they certainly can't do it now, while the war is going on. It's possible, who knows how long it'll take to repair, but that military asset for projecting power in the Mideast, West Asia, has been destroyed, at least in the short term. And that's really the point of Iran's strategy, is to, deny the United States access to all these different little Gulf monarchies, and just kind of, decrease their ability to project force in the region. And with the Strait of Hormuz, with their ability to tell the ships from certain countries, you can't come through here. And while you're allowing other ships to come, like, that is a huge victory for Iran. I mean, that gives Iran global power. It gives them leverage over the global economy if they can dictate which ships can cross and which ships can't. And so they can put a lot of pressure on the Western Empire, on the Western allies, whereas their own allies, are going to be unaffected. So I didn't really think of that. I thought of, like, you either close it or it's open, but I didn't even think of the idea that, you can close it to your enemies and keep it open for your allies. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now.
No. Yes and no. They did a soft close, what I would call soft closure, because, like you said, they were letting some ships through. I think even some ships maybe they didn't want to go through did maybe, squeeze through diplomacy or whatever. But that was very temporary, as we're seeing, because once you mine the strait, nobody, friend or foe, is really safely going to get through that. And that's so I think what's happened was they let out Russian and Chinese ships. Anybody kind of linked to Iran, they let through. That were already in there. That were already there. Let them out, and then they mined it, because Because that was yesterday or the day before yesterday. They appeared in CNN. They had mined the strait. Some of the mine layers had been sunk by the USA, but they did successfully mine the strait. I don't think anyone's going through it.
I mean, there's battling narratives. I don't think they did mine the strait. I think there's a different perspective on if they put a few mines to narrow the strait. And so it's possible that they put a few mines to make the strait, more narrow and more easily defensible. But definitely the strait remains open. Shipping remains going through. If you get permission from Iran, you can move your ships back and forth. And so the shipping continues.
Well, if they're anchored mines, I don't know if it's, and unfortunately we don't know that detail. If they're anchored mines, then yes, they can do exactly what you said. They can channel ships through a more controllable, because when you have like you said, if they have a narrower pathway for ships to follow, then it's easier to have fire control over it. But if they're unanchored mines, then they just go where they want to go, and then you can't.
Yeah, I don't think they did that. I mean, the West reported it briefly, and Iran denied it, and so I don't believe that they've mined the straits. I think the strait remains open, and shipping continues if you get permission. And so how long is that going to go on? Like that is catastrophic for the West. Mm-hmm. And so what are they going to do? And this is the thing. And this is one of the reasons why the West is fucked, because they don't have a military option for doing that. In fact, Iran has said they guarantee the safety of any ship that can convince the United States Navy to escort them through the strait. Mm-hmm. If the United States Navy is willing to escort them, Iran guarantees the safety of that ship, because they're so anxious to sink some U.S. ships. Obviously, the U.S. knows that, and they're not coming within 700 kilometers of the port, because they're not stupid. So, and that's the problem. Like, there is no military solution for the West with regards to Iran. A ground invasion is not something that they can do. And if they try, it'll take 6 months to build up to it. And that's already a loss. That is a huge loss. They have no military solution for opening the strait. So the strait's going to remain as it is now, up to Iranian permission. And so right now, I think Italy is negotiating with Iran. Hey, what do you need to let our shipping through? I think Spain might have a good chance to be allowed through, because they've refused to allow the United States access to our military base in Spain, and the parliament is really denouncing what's going on by the U.S.
So Spain was one of the main detractors, if you guys remember, of the Iraq War. Also, it was actually one of the places Bush avoided when he was visiting Europe, when he was president. He actually avoided Spain because he was so worried about them. They were so upset about Iraq. He's actually worried about the potential of being strung up by them. But well, the main thing is, we see some competing. Okay, so we have some questions. Can you tell us the extent? Okay, so Christine asked us, can you tell us about the extent of demonstrations in various nations against having U.S. bases on their land? Apparently, there's extensive protests in Middle Eastern countries. As part of the reason why they're having so many problems in Iraq specifically, because people on the ground. There have already been some, like even within the first couple days of the war starting, there was several violent incidents between U.S. security forces and protesters and rioters outside some of our embassies. So I'd say it's pretty extensive regionally. And even just the attacks on hotels and civilian buildings that are housing U.S. troops, because we evacuated them outside of these bases and they get hit. Well, that's probably because someone locally told the Iranians where those the soldiers were being quartered. So
I'm sure they have good intelligence.
But as far as Trump. I missed another one. Trump is fully complicit. Well, yes, absolutely. They don't care about safety, absolutely. How much profit have they made off it? Well, yes, there's some people who bet the right way. On energy, speculation certainly made money, but I think there's a very high chance this will be the death of the petrodollar. If the petro, because if the Arabs don't buy into it, it's done. It's done. U.S. is done. It's not even a question of keeping the empire. Just the U.S. itself as a civilization is done. Like imagine the worst neighborhood in Detroit, but that's just everything. It's literally you will have millions of American refugees trying to get like just imagine Mogadishu, but it's everywhere, and you have millions. Just imagine flipping the script like that. I mean, it's not even funny. It's terrible to imagine just like a country of 360 million people suddenly overnight collapsing into the worst. I think that, and I don't think that's hyperbole. I don't think I know that sounds like a 1990s or early 2000s disaster film, The Day After Tomorrow or something like that. But no, I don't think so, because just imagine. Even just now with the homelessness and just how bad things are now, but that's because we have that you can print infinite. What keeps it afloat is you can print infinite money, right? No one else has that cheat code. USA has that cheat code. You can say, oh, we print another $1 trillion, and that keeps it afloat. The portion of the population that is either unemployed or underemployed or can't make ends meet on their own in a different country, you would have food riots. You literally have bread riots. The reason the USA does not have bread riots because they keep, for the 30, 40 million people get that direct deposit every month, and that's the only thing keeping the bread riots from happening. I mean, just imagine if every major city had bread riots because people literally had nothing to eat. That's how every
they can
supermarket.
print money, but the money doesn't have value unless
exactly.
you're the world reserve currency. If you're the world reserve currency, everybody has to buy energy in US dollars. There's a demand for dollars, and you can keep printing it, and that keeps inflation down. But if that system goes, then printing money is going to be very inflationary, and it's unsustainable. And then you have currency collapse and all kinds of domestic problems for sure. And so, there could definitely be, movement in that direction.
Well, that's the Arab. I tell you, because when other countries, it's a big deal. I think it was kind of a big deal when Russia de-dollarized. It made the percentage tick the wrong way. China dumping dollars made it tick the wrong way. Those things are not good, but they're manageable. The Arabs are what's keeping it together. If the Arabs are like, fuck the USA.
No,
we're done with the dollars. We're done. We're toast. We're done. It's done. In the U.S., I'm sorry, Dust, but the U.S. military is 50,000 soldiers in total in the entire Middle East. They can't defend.
Well, what are you? This one? Are you referring to this one?
Yeah, if you sort of exist to secure people, only the profits, but it's not going to secure anything. If yeah. And we have one from Jace Hart. I recognize Jace Hart. Gas climbs 20 cents. Yeah, so I've been out of the USA for I think 5 years now. I sometimes feel out of touch. I am out of touch, but everybody's telling me the same thing. There's very little support.
So,
like even the usual suspects who support everything Trump does, just from people have been telling me. My readers have been telling me, like on social media, there's very little on the ground support for even older conservative leaning voters. Then there was that speech. If you saw that video of the speech Trump was making, and there was no cheering, there's no clapping. It's night and day comparison for comparing to his speeches in 2015, 2016. Night and day difference. And I do think we have to think about the ground. Are they going to resort to a ground invasion? Are they going to resort to nukes? It's not a big game. It's not a game. I think we're really it's becoming existential. It's existential.
Yeah, that's the question. I mean, as the prices of energy go up because Iran is blocking transit through there from the belligerent countries. So if you're affiliated with the United States, with Israel, or any of the European countries that are attacking, your shipping is not allowed through. This is putting a lot of pressure on the cost of energy. And so it's going to continue to go up. And again, we're only at the second week of this conflict. Iran has been preparing 47 years for a multi-month conflict. And, I just don't see the West is in a bind because there is not a military option for this. Like you said, like a ground invasion is going to take way too much time and be unsuccessful anyway. And it's going to be telegraphed. Like, it's not like they can do it in secret. Iran is going to be harassing them the whole way. They're going to deny their ability to, accumulate troops and things like that because they're going to be blowing up the airports and the ocean bases. And so, no, it's so you see the Trump faithful, the clueless people who don't know anything, but they trust Trump, right? They have faith in Trump. And they believe that, hey, this is great because, this evil Iranian regime, we're freeing the people. And that's what I encounter a lot on, in certain spaces on social media, is the MAGA faithful that doesn't have a clue about the actual situation that we're in. And they're so, all they can say is, hey, this is just awesome. We freed Iran. And wait, what are you saying? It's a quagmire for the U.S. What are you talking about? This isn't a quagmire. We are kicking their ass. So, it's this kind of, cluelessness that is really, really, I don't know. It's interesting to ponder, how adults, can be so out of touch. But I did have one thing I wrote down to address was just the reality of the military situation where Iran is able to deter Western attacks by the fact that they can respond in kind. And so Iran has stated, or one of a general, or maybe Larijani, I'm not sure who, but they said if you try and go after our, because Trump tweeted like, in 1 hour, we can destroy Iran's power generation capacity, and it'll take them like 25 years to rebuild it. And then, Larijani said, if you do that, we will turn out the lights in all the Gulf states. There will be no oil exports. And so in a way, Iran is just responding tit for tat with whatever the West wants to do, but they've made it clear that they have the capacity to do exactly what is done to them. So for instance, Iran is like, I don't know, 5% reliant on water purification, on desalination,
right?
Desalination plant. They're very, Iran's water with all the mountains, they're not reliant at all on desalination. But guess who is? The Gulf states and Israel. And so I heard that, one of the desalination plants in Iran was struck, and Iran made it very clear, like, you might want to think twice about doing that because, the entirety of the Gulf monarchies and Israel is really reliant, and they're exposed and vulnerable targets that we can easily take out. So it's this ability to match and exceed, whatever the West does, that has Trump in a real bind. And, I use Trump as a shorthand, for the Western Empire. But this is the reality. It's like Iran is winning. Time is on their side. There's nothing the United States can do. And if the United States tries to struggle, they're just going to get themselves more bogged down and in this vice even tighter. And they're going to make the problem even bigger. And that's the reality of the situation. And that's the reality of the situation that is lost on the MAGA faithful who, watch Fox News to get their information. But behind the scenes, I think it's dawning on the administration of just how screwed they are. And how are they going to get out of it? Okay, another thing is they realize this, and Marco Rubio, has been sending through Oman and through the Europeans requests. Hey, Iran, What is it going to take to end this? We want to end this. And the problem is, we know exactly what the problem is. Iran is under no illusions about what the West's intentions are. And they know that a temporary ceasefire is just for the West to reload and rebuild so they can attack again. And so Iran is like, hey, you've already done this twice. We've had diplomacy. You've broken off diplomatic measures. You've attacked us in the middle of diplomacy. You have no intention of diplomacy. And so what we're going to do is we're going to evict you from West Asia. You will no longer be in West Asia. You will no longer have the ability to threaten us. And that is how peace will come. And so what they're doing right now, they are methodically, slowly, in no hurry, destroying every building in all the 14 military bases that are surrounding the United States. And they're also destroying Israel. And they're going after the troops in the hotels, like you were saying, and they're making it unlivable. I'm really concerned about the American base in Iraq. Iraq is a country that is largely Shia, and they're very, very, very friendly with Iran, and most of them hate the U.S., and they've already told the U.S. to get out. Like, the Iranian government has already passed a law saying the United States needs to leave, and they're refusing to. And so more and more on the ground, the little air bases are being put under siege, and it's just a matter of time before the United States needs to leave. Because what are they going to do? Another ground invasion of Iraq? This is the thing. There is no military option for this. The people in the West Asia, the vast majority, and the vast majority in the Gulf states as well, are happy that Iran is destroying the United States. The only people that like the United States are the rich ownership class, the military, the monarchs, the dictatorships, the family dictatorships who benefit, from this relationship that the West has, created over the last, 50, 60 years, where these oil producing regions are like cash registers, and we put in place, these despots who facilitate, Western exploitation of their resources. And it's a win-win symbiotic relationship, but really it benefits primarily just a small number of obscenely wealthy monarchs in the Gulf states. And most of the people hate Israel. Most of the people hate the United States. And so you watch these videos where U.S. drones, hit, the hotels where not the U.S. drones, the Iranian drones hit the hotels where the U.S. people are staying, and you'll hear cheers. You'll hear cheers in the background of the people on the ground. So this is unsustainable. This is Iran's strategy to force the U.S. out, and in a region like West Asia where the vast majority overwhelmingly hate the United States and hate Israel, it's possible to do. So I don't know, Ian. What can the U.S. possibly do in this situation? What can they do to turn this around to save themselves? So we talk about nuclear weapons, right? Like that's one option. I'm not sure how likely that is, because I don't think the nuclear option would help the West, and I think it would hurt them more. But who knows? It's hard to know how psychopathic they are, but really they've just lost. Like, it's done, son. I mean, that's what who was our great Ben would always
telling you guys. I keep telling you guys, it's like I sometimes feel like I'm the only person who's taking this seriously. I mean, this is it's existential. It's literally, it's just as existential now that it's and I mean, I said this with Ukraine, right? So even if Ukraine was not an existential crisis for Russia, it became one the second the Russians crossed the border, because you cannot start a major, if you're a world power, you cannot start a major war and lose, right? So, I mean, one can play, Monday morning quarterback and say, well, there's some peaceful option Russia should have pursued. Okay, maybe that's true. But the point is, once they cross that step, they have to go all the way, right? So that's why we're still there 4 years later, because there's after that, once it started, then there's not a choice but to finish it. USA's got the same problem, exact same problem. I mean, it's amazing because Iran obviously does not share a border with the USA. It doesn't even share a border with Israel. It's not anybody's neighbor. It's like, what are they doing? But they've started the conflict. Now they have to exhaust every measure because it's existential. I keep saying this to you guys. It's literally the end of the U.S. as a nation state if they lose. Somebody is 38 trillion in debt. Probably around 100 million people who couldn't feed themselves if the economy went to shit. Just think, just every system would collapse. It would be a disaster. I think it would be 200 years before the USA was even on the map again. I do think the collapse would be that.
Listen to what Trump said this morning. He said, watch what happens to these deranged scumbags today. We have unparalleled firepower, unlimited ammunition, and plenty of time. Watch what happens to these deranged scumbags today. So, I
think there's going to be a ground invasion. I don't think they're going to. I do think nukes will be strongly considered before it's over. I think they'll try a ground invasion first. So, if we talked about the last show, I don't think they can get anywhere near enough to make a difference, but they will try. There's the Marine Muse they can deploy. There's, and they could, there's people they could deploy and they could do it somewhat quietly. So you and I, at the very least, you and I wouldn't know about it. That might be what he's talking about. It might be maybe he's just talking about more bombs. We don't know what he's talking about, but I think we'll go from bombing to ground invasion, and then maybe nukes. And it's already World War III. Yeah. Okay. I'm glad thank you. I'm glad Christine. Thank you, Christine. I'm glad somebody agreed with me. Jesus. You realize the gravity and express it as you are. Yes. And yes, and I do say yes, Dust. You are actually correct. You are correct. Say, well, who cares? It's the empire. At his earlier comment, the empire is not us. True. Imperial state. It's a victory for workers and oppressed. Well, it's not. Well, yes, okay, it is. It's like saying it's a victory. Okay, the fall of the Tsar was a victory for workers. It's a victory of the Bolsheviks, but there was also a civil war that killed roughly 10 million people. It killed more people than World War I. So we could say, hey, it's a victory because it eventually led to the Soviet Union. Maybe there'll be that happy ending too, but there's the period of civil war and 10 million deaths between those 2 points. And I think
before we prophesy the end of the United States, it seems like there's definitely going to be an end of Israel, right? Like if Iran is able to, largely remove the ability of the United States to project power in West Asia by, destroying, closing all their bases and forcing them to move the troops out because of the constant, and it's great, right? Iran has a lot of intelligence on the ground in these countries. People are telling Iran which hotel rooms to hit, where the United States service people have been stationed. And, this is going to continue, and it's going to be untenable. Like the only, when the Beirut barracks bombing, when 300 Marines were bombed in Lebanon, Ronald Reagan, had the intelligence to just pull out. And that's exactly what is going to need to happen again. And so it's just a matter of time. And with the United States no longer there to protect Israel, Israel is not shit. Israel is a tiny little country, with a diaper army. That's what Indy calls them. And so
they have nukes. I agree with you. Israel is fit without the U.S. support, and they're
what is the nuke? How is the nuke going to save them? How does nuke save them?
Without the U.S., they are finished. Yeah. So I think if the U.S. regional infrastructure,
nobody's going to want to live there. Their economy will be destroyed because nobody's going to want to live or work there, and they're going to be in bomb shelters 3 times a day. So, I mean, this is what is going to happen. And again, Iran has the capacity to maintain this for months, right? Like right now, they are producing drones. They're creating drones. They're creating missiles in underground cities. And of course, Trump tweeted, he said, "Hey, we have destroyed all of their drone and missile manufacturing capability." Well, I think he's lying. Like I don't believe that. I don't think he knows.
Well, Israel
This is
has
like
this.
Vietnam. What happened in Vietnam? Every single day, the Pentagon reported how we are kicking ass. For 20 years, the Pentagon reported how we're kicking ass in Afghanistan and how victory is right around the corner. Like, these are fucking liars.
Do
And
you think
again,
Israel?
imagine
Do
the
you think?
ignorant, American people, the MAGA faithful, that actually believe that shit. Like, they're adults. They need
Do
to
you
be fucking
think?
embarrassed.
Do you think Israel is going to collapse without firing the nukes?
Yeah, the nukes. It wouldn't save them. Again, what would
No, I
cause
mean,
them
I
to
didn't.
fire?
I didn't ask. I didn't ask if nukes would save them. I just asked, would they collapse without firing the nukes? Would they
No, it's
willingly
possible. It's
collapse?
it's it's absolutely possible,
Right.
and it's possible that there was something would happen and they would fire their nukes. But again, if the collapse we're talking about is that nobody wants to live there and they're being under constant constant bombardment and not able to further their economy, not able to continue their economy because everybody moves out and they have to spend so much time in bomb shelters, like just to arbitrarily drop nukes somewhere, which isn't going to do anything about any of that. So no, it's possible that Israel changes its name to Palestine, and that's how it continues. It's also possible that they nuke everybody, including Europe. Like, anything's possible. They could nuke the United States. That's possible too. But
I mean, they have. I mean, it is like, actually, as Daryl mentioned here, who's our resident Israel expert, by the way, guys. The Samson option and Israel. So, I mean, the thing about Israel is they have official. Not, I don't think it's ever been the official, openly stated Israeli position, but multiple Israeli officials and authors have repeatedly said the end of Israel is the end of Western and Christian civilization. They've made the claim. I don't know how, a lot of people speculate how far could they actually reach out and touch somebody, but they have claimed they would destroy every Western city of significance if Israel fell. Like, we're talking Rome, we're talking Paris, we're talking Berlin. People debate, okay, how far could Israel reach? And a lot of it might just be a bluff, especially now, decades later. Have they been keeping or even if they had an arsenal back in, what was it, the 70s, under Nixon? We don't know what they have now. But there's that. There's definitely nuclear blackmail that Israel has participated in. It has dragged the USA into every Israeli war, where they say, you know what, we're gonna, if you don't, and that seems to be what they did this time too. It's like, if you don't do it, we're gonna do it, and if we lose, we're gonna use nukes, and that kind of strong, that kind of, it's like the equivalent of being in an argument with your spouse and being like, well, if you don't do what I want, I'm going to drive the car off a cliff. That kind of thing that you hear about in abusive relationships. It is an abusive relationship like that. It's like, I would take us both out if you don't do what I want. And I think that's very similar to what's happening now with Israel. So, I don't look at this situation and rejoice. I see a lot of rejoicing here, and I don't really think it's a good, because, Iran is tremendously suffering. Obviously, the civilian populations around, U.S. bases, even if they support the bombing, they're not having a good time either. There's many millions of people affected by this, and I think it can turn into a global catastrophe several different ways, and they're all somewhat likely. I think it's very likely this will turn into some sort of global catastrophe, whether it's nukes or if it's just it escalates for years and years and it collapses the global economy. There's a lot of different, very bad ways this could turn out. And I think there's a tendency for us to get carried away with what we want. And I think there can be some wish fulfillment. Oh, because yes, I agree. It would be great if the U.S. just pulled out of the Middle East instead of waging war after war that kills millions of people and spends trillions of dollars in debt. It would be great if they stopped doing that, but I don't see this. Basically, what we're having now is World War III, essentially. I don't see it as a good thing, and it could turn out. There's a lot of ways it could get ugly very fast. That's all. That's my only point.
Yeah, no, and that's always been the concern. It's like, as they're collapsing, how are they going to lash out? To what extent? And I've always said, it's Xi and Putin. Their objective and their goal is to, manage the decline of Western imperialism with as little economic and murder fallout as possible. We want as few deaths, as few wars, as small of an economic collapse as is possible as the United States, declines. And so the world has to manage that decline in a way. But so it's hard to know exactly what's going to happen. And there is a threat, there's a fear, of nuclear weapons being used by these crazy psychopathic, Epstein class that rule in Iran, in Israel, in the United States, and Western Europe. But on the other hand, like, it is clear and obvious that they're being defeated. They're being defeated, and this decision to attack Iran the way that they have has been catastrophic, is being catastrophic for the West. And that just seems undeniable. And I want to point out something that we should appreciate, right? And what we should appreciate is the restraint that Iran has shown over the last 10 years, because Iran did not want to come to this point in time, despite the fact that for a long time now, they have had this capability. They've had the capacity to take on the United States, to evict the United States, and to really wreck Israel, and to show that they are the regional hegemon. Like, they could have done this 10 years ago, but they have suffered provocation after provocation with patience and desiring peace and a diplomatic solution. And they have been over backwards. I mean, just let's go through some of the things that the United States has done to them. So Soleimani was invited to Iraq to talk about a peace process, right? He was invited.
Wasn't it Syria?
No, I don't think so. I think he was killed in Iraq by a drone strike. So
I thought so. Okay, but go on. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Soleimani. So he was invited to Iraq to have some diplomacy, some diplomatic discussions. And while his car was leaving the airport, he was hit with a drone strike. Soleimani is the architect. Like, he was an amazing hero of Iran. He was the architect of everything that's going on right now with Iran. And so he was just a great hero that was just murdered by Trump because Trump was offended how he talked. Because Soleimani said straight out, like, we're the power here. Nobody can rival us. Iran is the power of the Middle East, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. So he said that openly. That pissed off Trump. But guess what? Trump killed him, and then Iran just suck it up. They did not immediately go to what they're going to now. And then there was the attack on the Iranian embassy in Syria. Iran just suffered it. There was the 12-day war. Iran agreed, hey, fine, we'll end the war. You saw what we could do. You want to end this war, we'll end this war. But now that you know that we can do, let's not have any more war. And by the way, didn't they attack the diplomats? Like, wasn't that a sneak attack while they were having diplomacy? And they did the same thing more recently.
They did the same thing. Yes, they did.
Yeah. So it's twice. The United States has invited Iran. Hey, let's discuss how we can resolve this peacefully. And both times they've used the cover of diplomacy to launch a sneak attack. And so it's like, by now, Iran is done. Iran is done. They realize, like, the United States, Trump has taught Iran. Iran has learned. we're not going to do diplomacy. We're going to rely on our military. And so, and we see what they could have done 10 years ago, but they didn't. And they have just shown incredible restraint. And the whole world sees this. The whole world sees who the aggressor is. And it just looks so bad. It looks so terrible for the West. And they're stuck. And what can they do except take the L? I mean, so anyway, that gets us back to the whole nuclear weapons, ground invasion. I don't think those are viable options. I don't think those are necessarily going to happen, right? I think that the United States could take the L and, limp off back to their shores and, just have a fatal blow. It's a fatal blow to Western imperialism. All their delusions of facing down China from a position of strength have gone down the fucking window. Like, this is huge.
Well, I think the problem is with the off ramp is that there, for some reason, there's this mental block in the American Zionist brain that the other party gets a say in whatever the ceasefire or peace deal is, and they can't comprehend it. I don't think Trump, like about Ukraine, I don't think Trump was lying. He did want a peace, especially before the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to that Venezuelan woman. He wanted that feather in his cap of being the mediator between Zelensky and Putin, Russia and Ukraine, and it didn't happen. He's probably frustrated because I do think in his mind he was just saying, he would just say what the conditions are, and everybody would accept it. And of course, they don't accept it because there's things they want, and it's like, we're not going to accept any peace deal if we don't get what we want. And he couldn't understand that. He's just like, well, I say what I want. You're supposed to just give it to me, and it doesn't happen. And he has this like
he's got fucking real estate agents doing his diplomacy. Like, it's a fucking. It is the culmination of I mean, this is the epitome of where capitalism ends. It's everything is exploited for profit. Reality doesn't matter. And it just collapses. Incompetence. It's an incompetent military. It's an incompetent strategy. It's an incompetent leadership. It's an incompetent diplomacy. Like, it's everything that the United States deserves. Like, that's what we get. I mean,
well, the problem is that there's not going to be. The idea that the best case scenario that it just fizzles out and the USA limps away, as you put it. Well, that. That's the thing is it can't limp away. Because Iran. The only way it could limp away is if Iran lets them. It either defeats Iran, or Iran gets what they want. And Iran has already said what they want. They want the closure of those bases. They want the expulsion of Israeli ambassadors. They had that whole list of demands. And they're in these. So as far as I can tell, they either destroy Iran's ability to prosecute the war, or the war continues till Iran gets what it wants. So my problem with the idea of there being no nukes or ground invasions, how is the USA going to mediate an end to this? And when they don't have a great track record with Ukraine, because they can't. Like you said, they're not.
No, they'd have to surrender. The United States would have to surrender. They would have to pull their troops out of Iraq, pull their troops out of all the bases in the Gulf monarchies. And they could try and protect Israel, keep troops in Israel. But that's going to be, once Iran doesn't have to worry about the 14 military bases that's surrounding them, they can focus exclusively on Israel and start making that place, even more unlivable than it already is.
Going to happen? Do you think that's even political? Do you think? If you went out and you asked anybody on Capitol Hill, like, should we just withdraw from the Middle East? I don't see that happen.
Well, what's the alternative? So the alternative is global economic collapse, continued deaths from American service people in Iran, and a real bad attitude by the American public, not to mention the global public, against Trump. It's like, why are you prosecuting this war that is, destroying the global economy, raising fuel prices up to, $200 a barrel, and you're not doing anything. You're not succeeding. You're not winning. We're losing. And so this is going to be very unpopular, and it's going to, like Ronald Reagan made the right decision to pull troops out of Lebanon. That's what Trump is going to be forced into doing, because there's just going to be no viable alternative to leaving. But I mean, that's the strategy. So yeah. I mean, can they use their control over the propaganda apparatus to convince people that things are different than they are? And that's the thing. So this is what I wrote about recently is, there's the ideas in people's minds, and then there's reality. And right now, the idea in people's minds is so disconnected from reality, and reality is going to be smacking them in the fucking face very soon. And that's just it. Like there's, and so I don't know. It's going to be very interesting, because
I just don't know how you could think they will consciously lose a war to Iran. That's what it won't matter. There is no way to spin that. There's no way the USA would be able to spin that as anything but a total.
And that's going to be a huge slap in the face to all these morons that live in liberal la land, right? That think America is the greatest, and we just kicked Iran's ass.
Yeah,
that's
no one would ever take the USA. No one would ever take the USA seriously again. The threats from the USA would be meaningless. The USA would be done. I just don't see how you think they would willingly do that without taking.
So again, Iran has posted their demands. It's going to be reparations, a removal of all troops from the Gulf, the Gulf states. So there's a way for Trump to declare victory. Of course, he would be, a lot of reparations
to Iran.
Yeah.
How can you possibly?
So they're not talking right now. And they won't be talking probably for months, right? But at the end of those months, the United States is going to be prepared to do what is necessary and to negotiate some terms, and those terms are going to be tantamount to surrender. And there's just no other way to read the situation.
Why would the USA surrender? Why would the USA surrender?
Because they have no choice. That's their best option. When surrender is your best option, you surrender. I mean,
Well, has that happened in Ukraine? Has that happened? Where has that happened?
Well, Ukraine isn't collapsing the global economy. Ukraine isn't pushing, oil futures up to $200 a barrel. So it's these are apples and oranges. But again, we're speculating. We're speculating, and I'm just sharing my opinion. But what's your opinion? Like, what do you think? Are you certain? Because I'm not certain nuclear war is inevitable.
So I was less certain than you about going to war with Iran because, in our conversations about whether or not Trump would go to war with Iran, I said, I remember I would tell you, the only way to defeat Iran would be a ground invasion. Nothing short of that would work.
The U.S. wouldn't say we surrender. The U.S. would say we won, and then they would.
And the only way the USA could do a ground invasion is if they did a draft. I said, and I said, if whether it was in Ukraine or if in Iran, regardless of where it was, to fight a major war now with the current troop levels USA has, and its in its manning requirements worldwide, it would need a draft. Any kind of major war, regardless of where it happens, with the peer or near peer opponent, would require a draft. So now we're at war with Iran. I think it's very. I think the optimistic approach is actually yours. I hope they limp away, as you put it. That is what I consider the best case scenario. But,
limp away and declare victory.
The more likely one is that they escalate it. So I could. So So I'll give my you gave your prediction. I'll give my prediction. You asked me for my prediction. I think they will keep sending more forces to the Middle East. I think they will put boots on ground. Is very. I mean, it's not. I mean, I don't think it's going to be anything like the invasions we saw in 1991 or 2003, but I think they will try some special forces type stuff. They're going to try something. And I think I would give it a 50-50 chance that they declare a draft. And I think it's actually the political situation right now is actually good for a draft because Trump could be the bad guy who pushes a draft through Congress, and Trump's out the door anyway. Then they bring in the liberal savior, Newsom or whoever. And a nice thing of having Trump be the villain who brings back the draft, the wonderful thing about Trump being the villain brings back the draft, is you could have a progressive liberal candidate who doesn't have to be the bad guy to bring back the draft because we already have the draft. He's like, oh, hey, now that we're getting 1 million conscripts or however many conscripts every year, guess what we're going to do with them? We're going to send them to Eastern Europe. They could pivot to a different region. I mean, maybe not in Eastern Europe. They say we're going to pivot to Taiwan. We're going to pivot, the South. They could take those conscripts and send them wherever. Iran could just be the justification to bring back an active draft that happens every year. Because I think people forget that before the draft was suspended, it was just a thing, whether or not we were at war, it was just a thing that happened every year. Elvis Presley was drafted, it was just a thing. A bunch of people got drafted every year. It was just a thing that happened until I think that's what we're going to do. We're just going to get a draft. It's going to happen, once or twice a year. Trump's going to be the villain that's brought back the draft. I think that's not a certainty, but I'd give it a 50-50 chance they use Trump to be the villain. Like the Batman quote, you either die a hero or live long enough to become the villain. Trump was the hero who stood up, who's going to drain the swamp, and then he became the swamp. So I think that's my take on that.
I don't know. To me, they don't have enough unity. Like there's not enough unity within the ruling class establishment to be able to pull something like that off. I don't see them getting closer towards unity, right? I mean, it's a whole bunch of diverse factions, and a lot of the ruling establishment would be opposed to that. They'd be like, no, that's madness. That's plunging the world, and we're not on board. And so there might be a few factions within the ruling establishment that want to go that direction, but I just don't see them getting the consensus necessary to do that because again, they're too fractured. And so there's enough people that are just wanting to make money, not wanting to see the global economy collapse, that there's going to be a lot of pressure on Trump to surrender, to declare victory, and then just try and move forward as best he can. And I think if he really did declare a war, and I think the Democrats would be all over it and really take the opposite side and just really use it for their own political benefit. And then what would they do when they came to power? I don't think they could really get away with doing the exact same that they just so anyway, I don't know. I think that there's a high, there's a high chance that the U.S. takes the L, and there isn't a nuclear war. There's going to be a lot more pressure on the global economy, but it's not going to, they're not going to let it get destroyed. They're going to, once it gets bad enough, they're going to pull back, and they're going to call that pullback. They're going to call it victory. And that's what Trump's going to do.
I think the main issue is we're talking about two different echo chambers because there's you and me in one echo chamber that USA is losing. But I talk to people. I mean, it seems like the large majority of center left and center right people don't even think the USA is losing. They don't even think it's the war is going badly. They don't even think the war is going badly. So if you think You know, if you're one of the normies watching the CENTCOM videos of, you know, of a couple trucks blowing up every day, or
the whole
plane
Navy's
paintings
gone.
blowing up,
They can't.
you
Yeah,
know,
no.
I mean, and they're like, okay, we've almost won. We've almost crushed Iran. We just need some troops on the ground. Okay, great. If you think that that victory is around the corner, as Bush did it, you know, almost mission accomplished. Sure, why not? Clean, you know, mopping up, clean up operations or whatever, however they brand it. You know, a few troops on the ground. Okay, then it's like, okay, we've almost won. We just need a few more troops. I mean, there's a lot of ways they could play it. It's just the thing is, you know, from your perspective, you're like, oh, needs to take the L. Well, not if you think they're winning, and I would say the majority of people think it's at least going okay. You know,
I mean, Trump has already declared victory, right? He's already declared victory. What could a ground invasion do? Can a ground invasion open up the Strait of Hormuz and wrest control of the strait from the Iranian forces?
He can declare victory as many times as he wants. The Iranians aren't going to stop shooting at them. They're not going to open the straits. They do actually have to consciously.
Can a ground invasion, reverse that?
I didn't say if it would work or not. Just would they try it? I think they will try it. I mean, it's just like it's just such an extraordinary claim that the USA would preemptively surrender to Iran, which is what.
Well, we surrendered to Afghanistan. We surrendered to Vietnam.
Afghanistan wasn't a major power. Because, you know, that's
all the more reason that we should be able to surrender to Iran. I mean, so anyway,
Iran is a player. The Taliban are not a player. You can, because, you know, we were not militarily defeated, which is true. The USA was not militarily defeated by the Taliban. It was not militarily defeated by the Vietnamese.
What does that mean? It was futile.
It means that we withdrew. It's because Iran militarily defeated us. I mean,
the objectives are unreachable. There is no avenue for reaching objectives in Afghanistan. There is no avenue for reaching objectives in Iran. But, you know,
I explained this in some detail at the beginning of the show. And I compared it to Ukraine. It's not a war of choice. There's a war of choice where you can pull out at any time. But once there's certain wars where you have your entire credibility on the line, you cannot afford to. It means you're done as a nation state if you lose, right? That's the situation Russia got into. And it's the situation the USA is in right now. If the USA pulls out, it doesn't matter what the reason or excuse is. The USA will be done. At best, it will be done as a global power. It'll just become a regional, interesting country.
It would be catastrophic.
Yes, and it might just be done as a nation state. Period. It might just get balkanized, and it wouldn't be the first empire that got balkanized by the war. I mean, it's just it's a very, very, very serious. You know, I think everybody knows that. I don't think we can downplay it as something the USA can limp away from. It is existential for the USA, which is why I didn't believe Trump would do it to begin with. I was kind of incredulous. Well, why would he do it? Well, because it's insane. I mean, it could just literally destroy the USA, and it's happened. I don't think the USA is willingly going to collapse as a global power, which is what pulling out of the war would mean. I think it's actually impossible. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe tomorrow Trump will say we are completely withdrawing from the Middle East, and I'll be like, I'll have to go on the next show. With you, say, yep, everybody, you were right. The USA just decided we're not going to be an empire anymore. We're dismantling the whole military. We're going to put the aircraft carriers in the scrap yards. It could happen. It's not impossible, but I just don't think it's likely.
To your point, though, it was definitely hubris that caused the United States to do that, and so that's the name of our show. You know, how Western hubris resulted in catastrophic defeat, and you know we see Trump saying, "I had no idea that they were going to block the Strait of Hormuz. I had no idea they were going to attack American military bases in all the Gulf states." You know, he was surprised. And so, yeah, no, this is, I mean, to me, it's fantastic to see, all of this wickedness and all of this, incompetence exposed, right? And it's like, and to see the Western Empire, they're either way, they're going to lose. They're going to double down. They're going to lose harder. They withdraw now, they're going to lose. And it's great. Like there's no avenue for victory. And so very soon, this is going to be dawning on even normies. And that's what I want to watch. I want to watch the look in the eye of the normies when they realize everything I thought in this universe is wrong. Everything I've been told since I was born was a fucking lie. Like I discovered that some 25 years ago, but you have other adults that, go through life somehow and still don't have a fucking clue. So, it's going to be interesting to see reality smack these people upside their head and what might be possible on the other side of that. I am optimistic. I am looking forward to finding out what is possible on the other side of that once people learn that, what they think is absolutely has nothing to do with reality. And then we'll see what we can do. We'll see what we can do with these people. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. So, look at Chandra's got my back. Ian, let me talk.
Yes, right? Yes.
No,
Yeah.
Ian is great. Ian is great. I appreciate his analysis, and I don't really disagree, right? I get it. Like he's arguing, it's yin and yang. I'm focusing on yin. He's focusing on yang. The U.S. could take the L. That's perfectly plausible. The U.S. could double down. That's perfectly plausible. And either way, they're going to lose. And I think if they double down, they're going to lose bigger. And I think that's why they might not double down. But we're just speculating. It's very exciting times. Again, Lenin said, centuries will go by and nothing will happen, and then a few days will go by and everything happens. And that's what's going on right now. It's really something.
I mean, it's true what you said, though. I mean, there is such a thing as sunk cost fallacy, where people can say, well, I have to double down or I'll lose what I invested already, when the best thing to do is just to pull out while you can.
So Trump has shown that he can do that, right? What did Trump do? Well, I mean, Ronald Reagan did it. Where did Trump actually? Trump got us out of Afghanistan. He blamed Biden for it, but he was the one that negotiated, the withdrawal, and then it happened under Biden. So I don't know. Trump, he's if he's a business guy, if he's about numbers, like he can see that it's the direction it's going, and then declare victory before it gets too bad. But Ian, you look frozen. I will end the show. Oh, there you are. Maybe you were frozen for a second.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I cut out for a second. Yeah. But yeah, I'm sorry. I cut out there. The last thing I think I was saying was that sunk cost fallacy. The sensible thing to do is what you said, is to cut your losses. Though I think even that window's closing pretty fast. But the sensible thing is sometimes to cut your losses and walk away. Unfortunately, and here's the thing. So here's the thing why I think they're unlikely to do that, because I think if you were in the Trump administration, they've seen the Iran thing coming for a while, right? I don't think it was a thing they decided to do on February 27th. It wasn't. They've been talking about for months. Logically, They should have cleaned up in Ukraine, and they just said, look, because they had a lot of leverage. I think they squandered their leverage, but if they used their leverage properly, they probably could have forced an end to Ukraine, which would have been the sensible thing to do if they wanted to play this game with Iran, because they need. So they're not trying to fight two major wars at once, which is exactly
all their
what
munitions have already been depleted.
Right. So if they couldn't do that simple thing of just saying, look, you got to do this, especially in the case of Ukraine. I think it's been it's been at least 2 years since the return on investment is gone into the negative. That they're not even getting what their money's worth. So if the idea is to bleed the Russians, it's been more than 2 years since they're bleeding the Russians more than they're bleeding their own wallets with this.
Catastrophic on all fronts. The poor.
Yes.
I feel bad for them. They have they have no options. I'll give you the last word though. I mean, was that the last word?
Let me see. I don't know. Any of our viewers have last words? We're gonna leave it to the floor. You have any last questions, last points? Anyone wants to get their digs in? Otherwise,
so we got spring break next week. I might not be available to stream, but depending on, I might be able to stream as well, depending on how that goes. But if we don't reconvene next week, we'll reconvene the week after. Because I'm just taking a week off. And okay, Daryl gets the last word. Good for him.
Yes, Daryl gets it. Oops.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll go ahead. We keep clicking over each other. Okay, yeah, Daryl says, "Long live Israel." Yep, that's. I think that's the word of the day. Actually, it's just.
And that is for anybody who knows Daryl. That sarcasm. Daryl is not serious about Israel. He is
our biggest fan of Israel. He's a huge proponent of Israel.
But yeah, no, it's a great time. Great things are happening, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that the West doesn't do something disastrous for humanity and the planet. As they're collapsing, because they are absolutely collapsing as we speak, and that's a great thing. So, look, I just got the last word. We will see everyone. Like I said, if not next week, the week after. Thank you so much for watching. See you then.